once again for the A7FL 3-on-1 podcast. We are counting down to week 5 of the 2023 A7FL season. I'm your host, as always, Matt Ryan, and I am joined every single week here on the pod and every single Sunday on the games of the week by you know them, you love them. He's glaring at you menacingly, Big Rob Fabian, and you already what is it? Something. Corey Hammond of the Boston Corey Hammonds.
No, we're the Omegas.
Well, the Omegas will be in action this week on the games of the week, and we'll go through what those are. But before anything, guys, before we get into the top 10, let's go over the scores this week of the A7FL. A big week 4, a historic week 4. We saw the highest scoring game in A7FL history, where the Sick With It almost became the Century Boys, and they defeated the OTT 92-38, but a big move in the top of the A7FL Northeast. The Silk City Animals became the 60 Boys themselves, getting a win 60-46 over the DC Buzz, a more game DC Buzz than we've seen all season, guys. We saw them put up a fight with Mark Diggs behind center. Lenny Manziel used a lot more sparingly. In our third game of the week, K Uno could not get it done pretty much by himself against the Vegas Hunters. The Hunters walking out of that game 40-36 with the win. The Omegas defeated the Snow Tribe. The Insomniacs.
I would love that. I would have loved that, Matt.
Sorry, the Renegades over the Snow Tribe. It's only Tuesday and it's been a week. But we go back now. The Chaos once again do not complete a game. They won 41-0. The BIC. Sorry, Corey. You can see the score on the screen if you're watching the video podcast. We won't say it on the audio to make sure that no innocents are harmed in the making of this pod.
We're men. We're men.
72.
You're my friend, but also the Force. But the Force also defeating the Gold 62-6. Those are your scores around the A7FL. The Ghost and the O-Town Orange going into overtime for the Ghost to get a win. Gray and the O-Town Orange, we're talking a lot of spice heading into the week, but Joey Bate and company getting the win when it mattered, getting to 1-2 on the season.
And if you ask Joey Bate how that game ended, he'd love to tell you. I'll just leave it at that.
And you can listen to that on the Parlay podcast, wherever podcasts are sold, which has become kind of the anthem of this podcast for reasons I necessarily don't understand.
Yeah, you're the one who's co-signing it. I just kept going with it, just me making the mistake.
Yeah, Corey started it, and this shit just sounds good. Not gonna lie.
It's perfect. It sounds good, but it's also dumb because podcasts are usually free.
Usually you gotta pay for this podcast. Pay what? I don't know. More than likely your dignity,
integrity,
your pride, your integrity, your time.
Everything.
But we're so glad you join us here every week on the
podcast.
podcast.
The voice, right?
Yeah. But we've got a big week 5 ahead. But guys, before we go into the thing that everybody wants us to talk about.
What? tinyurl.com/A7FL merch? Oh. If you can't see right now, you wish you could, is all I'll say.
I'm doing the douchebag thing of wearing my shirt on my show to promote my shirt in my show.
I mean, that's just good marketing.
It's good marketing. Some would call it egotism.
That's great marketing.
I mean, we did get in touch with Baby Joker's VP. You saw his Facebook story. He shouted us out.
I saw that.
You got in touch with him.
My man has his own marketing director.
No way. I missed that.
I mean, it could just be the guy who just dyed his hair. It could be an actual VP of marketing, which means that there's probably an actual president of marketing, which means he also probably has a CFO and a COO. You could probably tell that I was just watching Succession.
Is that a W-2 job? If so, hit me up. I'll send you my resume. A lot of it's here.
Or if you can afford all that, check out tinyurl.com/A7FL merch. That's tinyurl.com/A7FL merch. And since Baby Joker was hussing a little bit in the game, maybe he picks up a shirt for himself.
He seems like a huss guy.
I'm making the assumption real quick. It's not I'll try. It's not thick boy season. That young man's going straight for the huss.
And the Animals going straight for the huss this week. Every week, they continue to impress us. They continue to impress me at the very least in how they're playing and just the determination they had. And that goes into what we're going to be talking about mostly this week on what some would consider a shortened edition of the podcast. The top 10. And Rob and I said it alongside Zach Morgan this past Sunday night during our final game of the evening, but it was moving day in the top 10 across the board. And to say that selecting any week in this top 10, it's unofficial. So it comes down to the three people on this podcast. It comes down to me, Rob, and Corey. And we take input from other people. Some people call us, some people do editorials that we have to tack on to the podcast. Some people call us bad journalists. Some people think that we're at fault, specifically all three of us, for things that happen in the league that we legitimately have no say over. There will be people that are requesting that we move games. I did not know we ran do we run the league now? I don't remember signing any contract.
I think we're both A, responsible for everything that's wrong with the league mostly, and B, the people that our fans, not all of our fans, but some select guys, have fired us multiple times for multiple things. So I don't know if we're moving up or moving down, or if we need an agent, or if we need a raise. But we love all of the comments from everybody in our live stream, and shout outs to Rosetta Stone.
Yeah, from the YouTube chat.
Hitting up with the first $5 donation. So, I mean, it's the full gamut at this point.
And you can donate anytime live Sunday. You see the graphic there starting at 1 p.m. on A7FL.tv and internationally on DAZN. Way you can donate with DAZN is by subscribing to DAZN. And also you can support our sponsors, including Skillshare. You see it there on your screen, or you can go into the podcast little bio there, the info box, and go to tinyurl.com/A7FL Skillshare. That's tinyurl.com/A7FL Skillshare. Maybe they'll have that, of course, on social media and schedule building, since the people who attack us every week think that we make the schedules and run all the social media. One of those is right. Which one is it? You'll have to find out. And
does Skillshare
you find
have
them
a course on counting down or counting up from the top 10?
Yes, they do. And enough of that. I was trying to go into how serious we've taken this list and how chaotic it has been to come up with this top 10.
Yeah, for sure. In week 4, shout out specifically to my guys in Baltimore, the Watchmen, for basically making the middle of this conversation we're about to have something that the three of us I think are still confused about even our own points at times. And of course, I'm multiple people, so the we is myself. Matt and Rob know what they're talking about. But let me just say this. If you're upset with the top 10 or where you are in it, here's two things. A, the way that our playoff system is set up, all you have to do once you get into the playoffs is win every game, and then you win the championship. So good luck. And B, fuck them. Let's get to it, Matt.
All right, fuck it then. We'll save time.
Go ahead.
What Corey really wanted to say, but he's such a nice guy, is if you're upset at where you're at on this list, you should have fucking won. Yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
There we go.
I had to insert the photo of Sangria Bobby there, because our own Bachata Bob is cutting in and out on the video, but we got you back now, Bob. I can't call you Bob. Your name's not Bob.
You just combined the Big Rob, Bob. Boom.
Come on down to Big Bob. Hi, I'm Big Bob Fabian. Coming down to Big Bob Fabian's audios. I want to put you in a Datsun.
I'm getting old, man. I might have to go to Big Bob soon. Might have to go to
I
Big
would love
Bob.
to see Big Rob try to get into an 85 Datsun. Trying to sell someone an 85 Datsun. I think Rob could do it.
I think Rob goes to Bob when he gets that forward facing hat with the Peaky Blinders war. Once he goes to that,
Yeah.
and then he has and he's got to have something in like something he's chewing on, like either a piece of straw or a pipe or something. Once he goes to that, you're Bob, man. That's it.
He's gonna have
I'm Bob.
our buddy Big Rob, aka Bachata Bob, is a fashionable man, and he sees our Quattro Huffin, friend of the show, potential MVP of the A7FL this year, walking around wearing the fanciest of hats. I think Big Rob is you're gonna bring back the tri-cornered hat, Rob. I personally believe you're gonna bring back the tri-cornered hat.
I'm with it.
But speaking of tri-cornered hats, we had a problem with 3 of our teams trying to figure out which of them would be in the 3 slot. But we figured out 1 and 2. Let's get to it. It is time for our A7FL top 10. Coming in at number 1 for the first time ever, a Las Vegas team, a non-New Jersey or Maryland team sit atop the rankings. And the Insomniacs are number 1. Number 2 in their highest spot to date, the Silk City Animals. They come in at number 2. They play the Patterson U this Sunday on the games of the week. The number 3 slot goes to the Baltimore Watchmen, coming off of their upset win over the Patterson U. The U fall to the 5 spot, and ahead of them are the Trenton BIC, who beat Corey's Omegas last Sunday on A7FL.TV and DAZN. And in the 6th spot, rising up a spot, the Sin City Chaos got their 3rd win of the season. The Tampa Nightcrawlers coming in the 7th spot. Those 2 teams, I think, are going to rotate between 6 and 7 until the end of the season. And it's not a knock on their talent, guys. And we're going to go through all 10 teams here in some form or fashion. But we've not seen what they've been able to do against large-scale competition. Ohio is still growing. Florida is still growing. So we're seeing that competitive fire between a few teams. But the most important showdown for the Chaos is this Sunday against the Covington Heist, who are also undefeated. The Sick with it, after putting up 92 points. And I need to say that again, on camera, to camera, 92 points in a football game. They scored the same amount as a team would do in a 2008 Western Conference final game. That is a Tim Duncan Spurs score. That is Spurs Warriors round 1 of the Western Conference semis from like 5-6 years ago. But they are in the 8th spot. The 9th spot goes to the Kryptonite. Hard to completely take them off the top 10, guys, because they did lose. They did get their first loss of the season, but it's to the number 1 team. A team a week ago that was ranked number 2 in our league and wrapping things out, making their debut in the top 10 in season, the Covington Heist. Guys, this was a mother of a list to put together, to be completely honest. And I think we were all in agreement for the most part on 1 and 2. We both believe that the Insomniacs and the Animals are at the top of this list because they are both undefeated. They both have quality wins. Now, the quality of opponent can be argued, but the Insomniacs beat every team put in front of them. The Animals beat every team put in front of them. And one, if not handily, proved that they're at the top of the list for a reason. And for the Insomniacs, to me, they're at the top of the list because of who they've already beaten. They've beaten the top 3 teams that would be considered in that division. They beat the Sick with it. They beat the Force by an impressive number. And then they beat the Kryptonite by an impressive number. So you loop that in with Trey Robinson, Scooter Hamilton, Eric Shufford, and, all these other players that they have. And Bravado Wilkerson. This is the elite team in the Western Conference right now. And a lot of people are going to say the Sin City Chaos. And hey, those guys are putting in work. They hit me up. And you know that they're looking to make a statement because of how often they communicate with the three of us. The coach of the Insomniacs, the coach of the Chaos are conversing with us about how important it is for them to prove that they're at the top of their division. There's a matter of pride to it. There's an understanding that coming into Jersey, a win isn't guaranteed for any of these teams. But they have to show that they're at the top of their division, and they want people to know that, and they want us to talk about them on the podcast, and I think they've earned it. I honestly think they've earned it. Rob, Corey, when we looked at 1 and 2, what were the things that really... Is there anything I'm saying that you inherently disagree with, or are there things that I haven't brought to the table yet in justifying our top 2 teams?
Honestly, the top 2 teams are exactly where they're going to be probably for the rest of the year. Unless I think the Insomniacs are going to stay there. I don't disagree with anything that you said.
You think number 2 is going to stay there?
No. That's what I'm saying. I think Insomniacs.
Yeah, the Insomniacs. Yeah, because on their schedule left is OTT, not in any specific order.
Yeah,
OTT,
I don't think they're gonna.
The Gold, and I believe the Hunters. So they've pretty much played the teams that are the class out there. So they're likely, unless they make a mistake.
Yeah, they're the only team that can beat themselves. There's literally no one in the West as of right now. Take offense, write it on your bulletin board. There's
until the playoffs at least.
No. I'm not talking about the playoffs. There's no one in the West that can contend with Insomniacs. Quote it, put it on your team page. Say Big Rob is losing his mind. Y'all got to show me, bro. Y'all got to beat them boys. So
there you go.
Insomniacs in the West, they're going to stay there for a while. Right now, the only way the Animals move up, in my opinion, is if they beat the U on Sunday. There's going to be a very strong argument to bump them up to number 1 if they beat the U. But if they do not beat the U, then, back down they go, unfortunately. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Other than that, nope, I have no disagreement on 1 and 2. I think that's very fitting for both teams.
And the only thing that I will say and what I will do is not, call out who it is, but take responsibility for myself. We will say, even though we put the Insomniacs at number 1 and the Animals at number 2, based on the metrics that we're using and trying to apply and this was the basis of our conversation, trying to apply the fairest way to assess what these teams have done so far and not use either bias or our opinions on who we see on the roster, but just what they've put on film and what they've done against the teams they've played. They're the 1 and 2 team, but I will say this, we all, in one way or another, had something to say that was a little bit like, well, but I will say that one of us, and I'll take responsibility for it, said that we likely think that the 3, 4, and 5 teams that you're about to talk about might be favorites in our opinion against both of these 1 and 2. So, basically, long story short, whether you're happy or you're a little upset about where you are in this list, it really doesn't mean nothing, because it means nothing because Sundays you have to show up and keep proving yourself. That's what football's about.
And I agree. And when we talk about 3, 4, and 5, we talk about the Watchmen, the BIC, and the U. They're in a nightmare scenario, not only for us doing this list and our podcast that carries a lot of weight in the league for the fact that we're creating this conversation. We're inciting this conversation. And these players, these coaches, these managers, it matters to them. And Rob, we were talking about it, and I'll be transparent. I was like, why does our list matter more than the standings? And Rob, you kind of put a finer point on it when we were talking about this on the phone today, about it does matter. It matters because they want to be seen as the top teams in this league. They want to be seen by at least 2 of their peers and my fat ass as an elite team in this league. And I think being on this list shows that, because there's 16 other teams that aren't on this list. There are a sufficient amount of teams. The heist, it took them week 5 heading into week 5 for them to be on this list, and they're in at 10. The Kryptonite were undefeated and really never, I think, rose above 5. So it is one of those things to where I see your way of thinking on it. But when we talk about 3, 4, and 5, the argument came down to how do we figure out this impossible puzzle to who's better between the 3 of them, because the BIC beat the Watchmen, the U beat the BIC, and the Watchmen beat the U.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to do a trigonometric, like if you're trying to do math on that, and I am not a math guy, it may look like I'm a math guy. It may look like I code on the weekends, but I do this shit. And
you're more of a literary guy looking. You look like you're deep in a 800-page book.
Oh yeah, totally. The guy with Harley Race sitting over his shoulder. Big literary. I do love books, but
I'm being sarcastic.
I know you are. Fuck you. How about that? I'll be sarcastic. But
that's just aggressive, and I
that's just me.
That.
I'm sorry. I'll try not to. I got to live by my own code here, not be an asshole. You know I love you. But we look at this 3.
It feels good sometimes.
Shut up.
Just go for it.
Shut
there
up,
you go.
Bro.
Just go for it.
Shut up.
But when we talk about the 3, 4, and 5, Baltimore earned a 3 spot with the win, and it came down to net points. And when you have that kind of tiebreaker, when you need that kind of tiebreaker, it's amazingly valuable, not for it giving us an out, because a lot of people are going to say, they're going to make those exact noises. But when you look at the 3, 4, and 5, you can make arguments for all 3 of those teams to be number 3. And we all did. We all made sufficient arguments for each one of those teams to be in 3. It was like watching. We were debating each other and ourselves all at the same time. And
it's crazy.
It was an insane conversation.
The team that we said was at 5, I out loud said that if the Miller brothers are there, they're the number 1 team that I've seen. But in the rankings for the top 10, the U sits at number 5. And it's not recency bias, because we talked through that. It's not, these guys are Big Rob's most recent former team. No, Big Rob's been at least as critical, if not more critical than the U, than any other team that we cover. And I feel like at different points in our conversation that went from Sunday night really late just for a couple minutes, Monday night for a while via text, and then we were like, all right, we just got to call and hash this out, and then we're on the phone for an hour and 15 minutes. Every single one of those teams was in all 3 of those spots. So basically that's how close they are. And I'll even say this, just to be an asshole, as I sometimes can be, as you just noticed in the last 15 minutes of the show. I even said, why are we not even including Sickwit in this? Because after putting up 90 points, they're basically just saying like, hey guys, look over here. And our number 1 team, they lost by 3 points. Now, I think we all agree that the 3, 4, and 5 are the teams that we consider in that little group. And I'll say that I said that at different times, one of the 3 were on all different spots. So it was a difficult thing to do. And when it comes down to it, like we said, the net points means that the game control, the way that they dominated, and specifically the way that they looked against the top team that they just played in the number 1 U team, Watchmen are 3, BIC is 4, and the U are 5 in week 4. And I guarantee in about, what's a week, Matt, in hours? 150 something or other. In about 7 days.
I gotta go check the Rent songbook. Oh no, that's a year. Shit.
525,000.
Hold on.
Regardless.
Hey, robot, how many hours are in a week?
That would be 168 hours.
There we go. 168 hours.
This list is going to be completely different.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just gonna shack it out while Corey and Matt pacify you big fucking babies. It's as simple as this. If y'all don't like your spot, I said it earlier, you shouldn't have fucking lost. I personally don't think 3, 4, and 5 was that difficult. We actually predicted this shit 3 weeks ago when we watched the schedule and we did all this. We definitely predicted a nightmare scenario, as Matt called it, where the three-headed monster beat each other.
Yep.
And the only way, there's literally no other way to determine who's better in a standing situation, in a national situation, than net points. You should have scored more than the other motherfuckers. It's as simple as that. And we can sit here and talk about ifs and buts. If I had wings, I could shit in the sky and be like a bird, bro. It does none of that shit matters. Because what happens are the cold hard fact is none of the teams we're talking about made the schedule. None of the teams we're talking about they had full control of what they did when they got on the field. I don't give a fuck who stayed home. I don't give a fuck who decided to show up and who's hurt. None of that shit matter. This is the gauntlet of an A7FL season. You're going to feel it. Welcome to week 5. Everyone feels it. Everybody got bumps and bruises. So guess what? If your team wasn't able to hold it together, and I'm really talking about the you who weren't able to hold the number 1 spot from losing to the Watchmen, who lost to BIC, to put everybody in this quote unquote nightmare scenario conundrum, guess what? At the end of the day now, scoring more points than the person you're playing against and stopping them from scoring is now more important than anything when you're tied up like this. And the crazy part is that's football, that's sports. The whole point of winning or defeating a team is to score more points than them. And if you stop them from scoring, it's an even better situation for you. That is how we determine who's good. That is not how we determine who's bad. I don't think the net points is a bailout. I think the net points is exactly what they were supposed to be. Because at the end of the day, outside of the 1 and 2, everyone in this league would have a problem contending with 3, 4, and 5. Because that's the honest to God truth. Everyone in this league outside of 1 and 2 right now, because they're in the sweet spot, would have a problem playing against 3, 4, and 5, including them because they have a problem playing with each other. Clearly.
And I'd argue that 1 and 2 would still have tough games.
And guess what? And I'm just gonna let them chill up there and enjoy their spots and not even talk about them because they earn their spots and they'll just stay up there.
There you go.
But then a team like the Kryptonite, who are undefeated, where I'm like, okay, they're undefeated, but did they face the 2-headed monster over there yet? No.
And when they did,
what happened?
Yep.
What happened? So now they're like, oh, well, why aren't you calling our name week 2? We're undefeated. That shit don't matter. The Chaos and the Nightcrawlers are not playing enough games to be moved around. Honestly, they're in the top 10 because we know they're good. The Chaos might lose their spot this week. And personally, listen, we won't even get to the rest. The Chaos might lose their spot this week. Maybe. We don't know. We have to see it. And until teams realize this is not like, listen, if you can mercy rule everyone you play against, why wouldn't you? Are you kidding me?
Well, the Chaos have done that.
No,
that's the thing. The Chaos have done that.
The Chaos are in a first-year division. I am not saying what they're doing. Second year, but I'm not saying what they're doing is not impressive, but it's Ohio impressive. It is not nationally impressive.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue. Yeah, because the next little grouping that we kind of talked about were the clear division leaders that are undefeated in divisions that are still kind of growing and getting their footing, which would be, right, Matt, the 6 and 7, which are the Chaos and the Nightcrawlers.
Right. Yeah. And I'll start this one up because I kind of started it already. The Nightcrawlers are facing the same 3 or 4 teams. The Chaos are going to face the same 3 or 4 teams. They won't have enough games played to actually be able to even match up to the teams above them. But if they stay winning, if they stay in their winning ways, they will never leave the top 10. They just won't. It just won't make sense to have 2 division leaders out of the top 10. It just doesn't make sense. The problem is New Jersey is filled with monsters and Vegas is filled with monsters. And that's where you kind of try to fill in the dots. But as of right now, the Chaos are going to stay where they're at and interchange with the Nightcrawlers, depending on where they scored, who they scored against. And if you really feel like, let's say you're a guy on the Chaos right now, you're like, gosh darn it, they're not giving us no respect. They're not this, they're not that. Well, make it to Ohio. Let's make it to that Western Conference game. And there's no need for somebody like me, Corey, or Matt to give you your respect. You go out there and you fucking earn it.
And it's really right there for every single team in the A7FL across, whether it's the top 10 or even the teams that make the playoffs and then get in the tournament and then have a chance. But I think when we distinguish the two teams, the Chaos and the Nightcrawlers, it goes back to kind of the conversation we were having about all the teams. We have a really high opinion of the Nightcrawlers when Mark Bagway and Deontay Henderson shown up based on their reputation and what we've seen. But the fact is we haven't seen it this year. So, yeah, do we expect them eventually? Sure. But they haven't played enough or a lot of competition that we could really get it into the weeds of like where this team racks up or lines up based on what they put on film this year. And to be fair to the Chaos, even though I think we can, I'm speaking for the three, personalities myself, but you guys could co-sign it if you want. We respect the guys in Ohio for playing A7. We respect their toughness and their commitment, but I don't know. No disrespect, but the base level of respect that we have for their product yet means that what the Chaos are doing shows that they're a team that can score a lot of points and stop offenses from scoring. But how they rack up, or if they rack up or stack up to the top of this league and the elites of this entire country, that's yet to be seen. So when you look at their scores, they're dominating and there's nobody touching them. But guess what? They have a chance, likely not to go up. Maybe not. But they definitely have a chance to prove one way or the other playing the Heist, who we have seen we can use a comp. Because if they go in there, like we said, and they're in as much control against the Heist as we've seen them against the other two teams in their division that they've played so far.
Well, let me posit a scenario. Let me give you a scenario, and this will not make me popular for asking this question, but it's a question that has to be asked. We're going to talk about the 3 games of the week, and we're going to break down and give some semblance of prediction before we get off the air here. But I do want to talk about Sick With It. I do want to talk about Kryptonite. I do want to talk about those 2 teams and where they stand on the list. But positive theory. If, and this is the word if, the Animals defeat the U on Sunday, do the U fall out of the top 5? That's something that we may have to think about and talk about on Monday morning, is that if the Animals beat the U...
I can give you, I'll give you a clean answer. I'll give you a clean answer, Matt. The cleanest answer you could possibly get.
What do you got for me?
You ready for it?
Mm-hmm.
The simple answer to that is yes. You know why? Because in the top 5 is only going to include undefeated teams and teams with one loss.
Yeah.
That's it. The U gets a second loss to the Animals. Well, I can even give it to you now. If everyone that's supposed to win wins, and the U gets their second loss, who's right under the U? Nightcrawlers.
It's the Chaos.
The Chaos and the
Nightcrawlers and
It's the Chaos.
And the Sick With It, which is 1 loss.
And the Sick With It. Now, that 2 losses, they're
looking at 8
at the bottom 5.
8, 9, 10.
At number 8. Now there's an argument for Sick With It to crack the top 5. There's an argument there because now you're basing it off of, do you think the Nightcrawlers, who we really haven't seen yet, can beat the Sick With It? And we're basing everything off the Nightcrawlers. It's all based off what they're scoring right now against who they're playing, and the potential, because we got surprised last year. We didn't talk about the Nightcrawlers at all. Then they came and they beat a competitive DC Buzz team, and then gave Rare Breed the scare of a lifetime. And again, this league is about matchups. The same way we just watched the Watchmen, who lost to BIC, handily defeat the U. Right? This league's about matchups. The matchup last year, they were saying the Nightcrawlers might have been able to beat the U. And we'll never see that. We'll never get a chance to see that. But the truth of the matter is, if they have,
well, we might see that in the playoffs.
The U
we could see.
Yeah, we might. But 2 losses, The U is out of the top 5. There's no question whatsoever.
Well, Corey, what do you think?
In our ranking, based on how we're ranking these teams and the right way to do it, yeah, they're out of the top 5. Are they not one of the best 5 teams or one of the least the 5 teams I would like to face least based on their talent level? Yeah, but I mean, what we have to do is when we're a full league now, as the national show, we cannot ignore the other scores and just give the U their spot in the top 10 or the top 5 or whatever based on their reputation. Just like we didn't just give BIC the nod over a team they beat at number 3 because they're the defending champs. This is a top 10 that we're trying to do as arbitrarily and as equally and evenly and fairly as possible. And we're basically just me, because after that week, then I have to play the U. If I'm trying to get the U and I make a plea for the U to be in the top 5, it's because I play them that next Sunday coming up. So yeah, let's just see what happens Sunday. And I know we'll talk about that, but that's really where we sit at 6 and 7. And then to round out the top 10, we have 8, 9, and 10. And I would say that outside looking in, a team like the Renegades, that is 2 and 2, which doesn't have a good record compared to these other teams we're talking about. That 2 and 2 looks pretty good because they've only lost by 7 points, to BIC, the number 4 team in the country, and 7 points to the number 2 team in the country in the Animals. They took care of business against the other 2 teams that they play. And as a defense, the Renegades right now have only allowed 52 points in 4 games. Sickwit had scored 90 and won. What?
Yeah.
So,
but let's talk about the
8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
So that's Sickwit is 8. And I put it out there. Now, for all we talk about how even and fair we're being, let's be real. No disrespect to Vegas, the West Coast in general, or shout outs to the Other Side of the Ball podcast, now featuring Scott McCorkle and my guy. It's Anthony Alvarez, right? Double A?
Yep.
I knew it was Alvarez. I didn't want to mess up the first day, but it's Double A, right? No disrespect to them, but the East Coast is still a division top to bottom that I respect, especially after seeing a team get 90 put on them on defense. Then I do the West Coast, but the top of the Vegas division, we do have to take very seriously. And I will say this, even though they're 8, I don't know if I feel 100% confident betting my mortgage. Well, rent. My rent, that Sickwit would lose to any of the teams in front of them, including the number 1 team, Insomniacs, which in week 1 they played, guys, and correct me if I'm wrong, they only lost by 3 points. So if you're in the 8th spot and you're with Sickwit and you're like my guy Lavish T out there, real flashy, Lord Tenyon from Demon Slayer, making great plays, by the way. Guys have to kick him and leg trap him, or Matt, you would describe it better because you know wrestling better than me. I'm just an idiot. To get him down because he's impossible to get down. He was tiptoeing up the sideline. Guys were swinging him by the jersey. I would say stay the course, win your games, because once the playoffs starts anywhere in the playoffs, regardless of what these rankings say, you win the games in front of you. You get a trip to Ohio. You win in Ohio. You can go to Bullhead, Arizona, and that's where everyone wants to be. So if you stay focused on the games and not Corey Hansen, and Corey Hammond and our opinions of you, either use what we're saying to motivate you, Sickwit, but please, if you're playing the gold next week, keep it under 200.
So that was Sickwit. So who's after Sickwit?
Sickwit, Kryptonite, and Heist.
Okay, now I'm not going to be a favorite here. I'm taking this stance pretty clear. I do not think the Kryptonite belong in the top 10. I definitely think the Kryptonite belong on the outside looking in, and it's because of what the rest of their schedule holds for them. I never thought they were in the top 10 personally, and as good as Darnell is, as much as he is running that team as well as he is doing, he's not able to do what he needs to do to beat the guys at the top of that division. I don't think he's even playing them tough. They're just getting, clear-cut wins, and then they're moving on. They're not even looking at the Kryptonite like it's a big game. And maybe they're wrong for that, but again, the Kryptonite have to show, that they are a team to be dealt with. The Covington Heist, I definitely agree with being in the top 10. It took them a while. Like Matt said, it took them a while. They were knocking on the door. Finally, they got a chance to come in. They're in the top 10. I personally
they almost lasted the attrition of the teams in front of them losing, basically, right?
True, yeah.
And if the Heists take care of business this Sunday, then we have another conversation that we got to figure out.
There's no conversation to me. The chaos might be out. I mean,
no, I would immediately figure out a situation in which we're figuring that out. But then we got to say, like, look, what are we looking at if the Heist can beat the team that's blowing all the other teams out in their division?
So what does that say about the Heist?
Well, let's see how the Heists are staying in, the chaos are going out, and then they get to play each other again.
Either way, Ohio will only have one team in the top 10 next week.
I'm pretty sure.
Whether it's the Chaos or the Covington Heist, that's up to you fellas on Sunday. That's up to you guys. Now, in replacing the Kryptonite, in my opinion, is the Renegades.
Yeah.
And I would have the Kryptonite outside looking in, but the Renegades right now have a front runner for Defensive Player of the Year in Trey Baskerville, who's not only dominating on the defensive side of the ball, but he's scoring touchdowns now. He's like a mini Megatron. It's kind of scary what that defensive line was able to do. And this is a team that you said that you can show proof that lost by 7 points to BIC, the defending champs, and then lost by another 7 points to the number 2 team in the nation, number 1 team in New Jersey. The Renegades are a good win away from being in the top, 5 conversation. And for me, that would have earned them a spot in the top 10. But again, this is a democracy. This is, you got to get overruled sometimes. So again, the Kryptonite earned that spot. Who did the Kryptonite play this week?
They play the Sick with it.
So we'll find out a lot more about the Kryptonite in their back-to-back games, where last week they played Insomniacs, had a lot of trouble.
Indeed.
And if they can either keep it close with Sick with it or just not let up 90, I mean, Jeremy Geary and those guys out there might.
Because I want to bring this up. We talk about the 90 boys. They scored 92 points. They broke a record. They made history. They are facing.
Can I clear one thing up, Matt? Can I clear one thing up?
Go for it.
The Sick with it have the record for most points ever scored in a game in A7FL history. But BIC,
and it's the most points scored between 2 teams in a game. It's the highest point total, highest individual point total, but
Right. BIC has the record for most points scored.
The highest margin of victory belongs to BIC.
Completely highest margin of victory. So BIC
they
still
won
does hold the record.
They won 80 to nothing. That game could have went to 100 if that was. And
so the 80 boys are still the 80 boys, and the 90 boys are now dubbed the 90 boys. Congratulations, Sick with it. You guys are the 90 boys. Go ahead, Matt.
Shout out to the Omegas for somehow doing better than Snow Tribe against BIC with the whole comparison.
Oh my God, Corey!
Shut next week.
No, we got to talk about it. Our boy Corrence Hammond scored a rushing touchdown.
That wasn't me. That was Jeremy Spellman pulling me in.
Touchdown. It said it on the stat sheet. David Silverman put it down, so it is law.
Damn shame.
Corey Hammond has a rushing touchdown.
BIC let Corey Hammond run. I let Corey Hammond score a rushing touchdown.
Well, listen.
And if you weren't watching the broadcast, Kenny Stansberry and the entire defense ran wind sprints for allowing Corey Hammond, our friend, our broadcast partner, a third of this show, into the end zone with the football in his hand and not throwing it.
And listen, for those who haven't seen it, it's not my average yards per rush, per attempt rush, not including my sacks, which obviously always gets a negative, was still only about 7 inches and 3/8 of an inch. So we're not talking about a run here where, I was opening up the gate and going. Somehow I found the seam.
You weren't Willis McGahee in Miami. You were me going for a coffee pot in the morning. But you know what matters? It doesn't matter how many yards it was. It's how many points you put on the board. You put 6 points. You scored a tutty.
Perspective. If we're going to talk about the Omegas first, shout out to my boy, Xavier Vinny Goose. He balled out. And unfortunately, I think I'm rubbing off on him because early in the game, the second offensive play of the game, he catches a pass, gets 5 yards, partially tears his ankle. He literally played for almost the entire game. He's a warrior. He's a G. He's tougher than almost everybody in this league. Absolutely 100%.
Rookie of the year candidate, in my opinion.
And
we've got
Jeremy
a solid
Spellman,
list of that this year.
And then Jeremy Spellman is the person who should be given the credit for that touchdown, because I will describe the play. I saw a seam. I closed my eyes. I know I was playing BIC and it said God did or something on there. No, it said OTF. But, it's God's sometimes on their side against me for some reason. And I said my little prayer, and then here comes this momentum, and somehow I got in there. Now, what I didn't do was give up on the play. I kept fighting. Only thing I can ever promise is that I'll try. But I do want to say that Jeremy Spellman, tight end, linebacker, wide receiver for the Boston Omegas, you called him NY. He had that good return. He gets credit for the touchdown on that play. I did nothing.
Shout out to Jeremy Spellman and Goose, 2 key cogs of that team. But there's something that bothers me about the Sick With It OTT game. Lavish T is an offensive player of the year candidate for his work as a returner. But do we look at the fact that they gave up 38 points on defense? The defense in Las Vegas is going to be a thing we talk about heading into the postseason. And if I'm the Sin City Chaos and I'm seeing the type of football we're playing in Ohio, and we're playing more intense defense, and this is a critique that we have had about Nevada, I would say, since last season. They play a much different style of defense that is not going to benefit them when they cross into Ohio or when they host the championship this July at Anderson Automotive. Like, we're going to be seeing these teams who have been used to defenses that drop back and kind of are forced to play spy. They're forced to play spy on the front line, the front 2 to 4, whatever you want to call their frontline defensive unit, have to act as secondary because of the speed of the quarterbacks out there. And I think a lot of it has to do, and I'm not as well versed in flag football as I am in traditional tackle football, but it does feel like they're trying to port that defense over. And that's why we saw a 92-38 game. But a lot of that was also built off of back-to-back-to-back 3-on-1 touchdowns.
Well, and I will say this. I think what you're saying, Matt, is absolutely true for most of the teams some of the time. Now, we've seen good plays on defense, and we know that there's good defensive players out there. I always say that Tone Smith, when we see him on film, he looks like he's a legitimate defensive player. But I will also mention this of our number 2 team. Let's be honest, 46 to the Buzz, who are 0-4, looks a little sketchy. Now, putting it in perspective, Mark Diggs and Keon Daniels. I messed up his name.
Keon Charles.
Keon Charles, excuse me. Sorry, my guy. I should have got it right. I could barely see your jersey. You were running so fast down the field so many times. So that's the only reason why I got it wrong. But the Buzz put up 46 on the Animals. So maybe there's something about the TBS quarterbacks, and shout out to G Hurd and Savion Cunningham for OTT, who have always, managed to put up points. Even in their losses this year, they managed to at least get either the meaningful or non-meaningful or garbage time or whatever. They're stuffing the stats on offense. I would say they got to commit something to the defense, because if you're giving up 90, there's no chance of winning. I just saw 72. I can only imagine what 90 is. But, if you're in the Vegas division right now and you think that you're going to walk out with the money at the end, you got to have your defensive line and your corners and your linebackers look in the mirror and ask themselves if they're going to do what it takes to do that. Because if you watch the film of champions in this league, there's a certain style of defense that you have to play. And as much as we respect the Insomniacs, and we saw them playing some pretty good defense against Kryptonite this weekend, the level of intensity from the entire Vegas division, I think, not to call them out to be a negative or so that they could be upset, but to just make them aware. You have advance notice now. Figure it out before you get to July 23rd.
But that's what I'm saying. We talked to enough of these guys. Like, who are we talking to? Are we talking to Sick With It? Are we talking to Kryptonite? Are we talking to OTT? Because the top teams in Vegas know this for a fact. They know how to run defense kind of clearly because they're cleaning up over there. And I don't think people are dropping back to spy on a quarterback in Vegas because they're so fast. I truly don't think that's what's going on down there. I just think they're coming from a place where a lot of them still play flag and traditional football, where zone works for them.
Nope.
Zone,
not here.
And again, and it's not even saying that zone doesn't work here completely. If you have smart enough defensive backs that run the right schemes and run the right plays, then a certain type of zone can work. But I'm pretty sure no one in Vegas knows what zone I'm talking about. But teams like the U, teams like BIC, teams like the Watchmen, they run that zone. But you
here
won't know it's
and
a zone.
there, though.
Yeah,
they run it here.
It's not endemic to their defensive strategy. Right, and when you lose nearly,
wait. No, it is endemic to their strategy. The problem is nobody's paying attention enough to know where did this guy just fly from? There's a zone being run, but then it's in Vegas, it's not being run from the proper spot. And the guy's job assignment is not the same job assignment that's going on in the Northeast. There's a type of zone. It's just not what they're running in the West.
And
but the Insomniacs know that.
Right.
The Vegas Force know that. And I don't know about Sick With It. I don't know if they know that. But I know the Force know that because Rock Briscoe was throwing the ball all over the place and running all over the place in Vegas last year, came to New Jersey and got his shit stomped. So I'm pretty sure a lot of those guys do know that. The ones that need to know. I don't think a 92-point victory over a team that scored 38, I don't think that 38 is as bad as you think, because if I'm able to score 92, do I really care that you put up 38? Do I really care? I mean, honestly, like, would I give a shit if I put up 92 points? I beat you by 50-something points. I don't care that you scored 38. I just scored 92. That 38 doesn't mean anything. It's kind of the same thing for what happened with Huff and the DC Buzz. The DC Buzz probably played their best football on Sunday with Mark Diggs back at the helm. They scored 40-something points. Right, on offense. They scored 40-something points. That is a beautiful score. And most likely on any other Sunday versus any other team, that 40-something points
is enough.
It's enough to win. But not that Sunday, because the team you win against put up 60 comfortably. And they dropped more touchdowns than they made.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
And what I'll say is the zone that Rob is talking about, not to give too much of the tea of exactly how it's run, but it's a matchup zone which means that you're not covering the zone. You're covering the man in the zone. And I think what Matt's talking about is what we see. And like I said, it's most of the teams, some of the time. Obviously, we've seen good defense, and obviously we've seen great football from Vegas and from California and from Ohio. But what I think Matt is alluding to is when you see guys dropping back, covering field, and letting guys in their zone, in their field, just run free. It's no surprise that the average points per game in a Vegas game seems like it's 15 to 20 points more than what we've seen in the Northeast, where we've seen a game 7-0. And I'll tell you why is because the Renegades defense is and the Asbury Park wind seemed to be the only thing that was able to slow down Huff this season, offense or defense. and that's the top 10 and more. That's the top 10 plus.
Yeah.
We gave you
that
some
was
extra.
a top 10 plus. So, but before we go, we've got a little bit of time left.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about real quick this Sunday on A7FL.TV and internationally on DAZN. We've got 3 games for you. All 3 games coming from the Northeast. Me and Big Rob Fabian will be on the call for all 3. Corey joining us for the first and second game of the game day. And then the third game, we'll be calling Corey's action. As the Omegas and the Renegades will face off at 7 o'clock in our final game of week number 5. The BIC will play the Snow Tribe at 4 o'clock. We might see the BIC try to reclaim their status as the 80 boys. I don't know if we're gonna see that happen on Sunday, but this is the matchup that brought us the 80 boys last season, but the Snow Tribe a better team than they were in 2022. And our 1 o'clock game, the Battle of Patterson. We start off Sunday with what may be the most intriguing matchup of the season. Is it the best game? We don't know. Is it the most intriguing matchup? Yes. Because the U are coming off a loss. They are walking into this game with questions about their quarterback position. Carlos Crosland still dealing with an injury, we assume. Kareem Moon threw at least 4 interceptions on Sunday against a Watchman defense that looked championship ready. They brought a level of pressure, guys, that the U weren't. If they had, and Corey, you were talking about if the Miller brothers were there. Yeah, no, if the Miller brothers were there, this is a completely different conversation, but we have to deal with the reality we're in.
Yeah, guess what? They weren't there, though. So
yeah, they weren't there, and they lost.
Didn't look the same.
And they're going up against a guy who understands the mechanics of that team better than any active player on another roster because he helped build that team. Rob, you were literally in the trenches with Quattrell Huffin for multiple seasons. 3 of those brought you to an A7FL championship game. Does Quattrell Huffin have the tools at his disposal to beat the U on Sunday? And I'm not laying a line. I'm not saying beat them by X amount of points or do X amount of things. I am just asking you straight up, does Quattrell Huffin with Baby Joker and, you know, the guy that looks like Omarion and all these other guys on the team, do they have enough to beat the U?
Okay, simple answer. The answer to that is no. They don't. Like, this is a tough call. They do not have enough as a team to beat the U. That does not necessarily mean that they cannot beat the U. But if you're the question that you're asking me is if Baby Joker and all these other guys that are kind of getting their first kind of glimpse at stardom and a big name, Kenneth Stewart. Kenneth Stewart's been in the conversation before, but Huff doesn't. Listen, it's just gonna be a hard pill to swallow for the animals. Huff doesn't have any serious or real weapons. He is the serious and real weapon. If you're asking me, does Huff himself have what it takes to beat the U? The answer to that is yes. But if you're asking me to tell Huff to rely mostly on his team to beat the U, the answer to that is no. He doesn't have enough there, but he has enough in himself. And what you're going to hope to see is what you've been seeing all season. Huff starting the game off at level 10, and where his guys might start at level 3 to 4, because of Huff's intensity, those guys bump up to 7, 8, and 9 really quick. And they start getting to it really quick. But where the problem might lie is the same little mistakes that Kenneth Stewart had last Sunday, or the miscues with some of the, some of the pitches or some of the handoffs. You can't afford to do that against a team like the U.
No.
A team like the U will capitalize and they'll win that. Where Huff has an advantage is Huff is very good at scoring championship points, and he's very good at scoring fast.
Sunday they did quadruple reverses on every single.
Oh my goodness! On every play, bro.
It was me and my buddy playing NFL Blitz on the GameCube in the early 2000s. That was the offense being
ran. Can you even pitch
ridiculous.
It back in Blitz? I don't even.
I think you could lateral. You could lateral.
You could
in street. Yeah. You're right.
In street you can, but I think you could do that in Blitz too.
So the thing is,
it was a video game. That's all. It definitely was a video game.
The thing is, a guy like Huff, he knows this team. He knows the weaknesses of the U. He would know how to exploit it. And we've watched him do crazier things. Do the Animals have a chance on Sunday? Yes, they do. But that is very indicative. I couldn't pick a team to win or lose because I don't know who's coming Sunday. It's as simple as that. I don't know who's coming Sunday. I'm just going to be there at 1 p.m. to enjoy the Battle of Patterson.
Absolutely.
Because I personally, based off of the teams I saw on Sunday, I personally couldn't tell you who's going to win. Because, again, you're dealing with a guy like Huff who's very cerebral, who I don't know if people think Huff is some type of joke or he's a clown or this is like an accident that this shit is happening. But we don't call him the best at this shit for nothing. Ryan Shamar was on the show a week ago saying that Huff was the best to ever do it. Huff by himself, his existence as a quarterback is a threat. So regardless if he has the intangibles or not, any team that has to play Huff for the rest of the season must take them seriously now. You can't sleep because now I'll give the Animals the credit that they deserve. The Animals have never laid down for anybody. I used to kick up on the Animals every year. But my problem when I played the Animals was, hey, guys, this should be an easy game. You guys suck. Nope, the Animals are going to fight tooth and nail. And I'm sitting here like, now we're up by like 1 or 2 scores. And I'm like, bro, I'm beat up against the fucking Animals. Like, why? Because the Animals are tough, gritty, and they don't have quit in them. And I'm sorry to throw a shot at a team like Snow Tribe with so much potential. A team like Snow Tribe with so much potential, if they had half the heart the Animals had, they would probably be undefeated too. But the Animals are full of heart, full of vigor, and they really don't care who's in front of them. And that's the essence of who the Animals kind of always been. And that's really the essence of what A7 has always been. Guys who are willing to go out there and put everything on the line. And if you surround guys like that, if you surround Huff with guys like that are they listen to Huff, bro. I've heard quarterbacks in this league complain about people don't listen. They listen to Huff. They just make mistakes. They actually listen to every fucking word that man says. All that does is makes Huff, every player on that team is an extension of Huff, and that makes the Animals dangerous this year. So if you come in there thinking, oh shit, we got an easy win, it's the Animals, fuck Huff, fuck the mother Patterson guys, blah, blah, blah. If they come in like that, they're going to lose. And I think take this game serious.
And I think for the Animals, the scary thing is, Rob, that's 60 points they scored. Huff was actively looking to get the ball out of his hands to share the wealth and share the yardage and the statistical, output. Against the U, those times he's looking to pitch back, if he's season opening, I think he's going to have the killer instinct that he knows this is the game that it's on him. This is the game that it's his responsibility, that in a big moment with a big time play in front of him, he doesn't want to look for, doo-doo, and shout outs to doo-doo. That's what his daughter calls him, just to be specific. We talk about it as much as we can. We're obviously laughing because of the way it sounds, but there's a bigger and deeper meaning to it. That being said, he pitched it to doo-doo, right? Like, or threw it to doo-doo, or whatever the situation is. Against the U, I think the version of the Quattrell Huffin that we get is that when he has a free sideline to run down and score a touchdown, he's likely going to take it in himself because he knows how important this game is for the standings and how important it is to him.
I'm going to tell you why I don't agree with that. Huff knows that these guys are going to – if I'm telling you right now, Huff, the animals are going against the U, who the hell are the U going to key on? Who on their team is so fucking amazing that they have to lock on and key on? The U is not going to go into that game respecting the players on the animals, which might be a detriment. Huff is going to exploit that.
Fair.
Huff is going to exploit that. So
well, the DC Buzz were trying to win Sunday. Who were they focused on? Now it's a different level of defense. My thing is that if Huff does the thing where he's pitching or he's looking, he goes out of bounds. But if he goes out of bounds because he wants to throw a touchdown pass or any of that, and then there's a mistake, that's not on the guy who made the mistake in the later play. That's a mistake on Huff, because in a championship level performance against a championship level squad that he's facing Sunday, because we talked about it, if the U beat the Watchmen and they beat them handedly and they're full of themselves going into this game, that's potentially a different level of intensity that the U bring to an Animals team that maybe they look a little bit past. Well, guess what they're not doing this week?
Yeah, the U have to win this week.
Yeah, so they're not looking past them.
Right.
They're not taking it seriously. And I think they circled this game in the beginning of the season anyway. And it's just that much more important because of what happened in this last calendar week. Now, I think it's interesting to think that other than the obvious rivalry between having a Huff play his former team or having the U play their former quarterback, it's also almost the antithesis of each other. Animals, what does this sound like? One of the greatest quarterbacks, if not the greatest quarterback of all time, inexperience and a questionable level of experience in these championship level games. And then if we go to the other side, we have questions of the quarterback for the U, but the rest of the roster, champions up and down that roster, from the guy that starts and plays the most to even the guys that come in and sub every once in a while. So as much as we'll mention the J-Rock getting hussed, J-Rock is still a multi-time champion in this league and knows how to play the game. And against some of these guys in the Animals, it's going to be interesting to see. Is it the Supreme Court? All right. I mentioned his name to get the huss in there. I can't completely disrespect the guy moving forward. All I said was an absolute fact. And if you're not watching this on DAZN, A7FL.TV, or YouTube, and listening wherever podcasts are sold, check out what Rob is doing as I'm saying J-Rock's name.
Just selling him out in front of God and everybody.
Oh, I'm a narc, and with everything that Baltimore
selling
has done
out your own people, your own people. Be your own people.
I don't know. I'm trying to give the immersive experience, because I think one of the best things about our video podcast are the faces that Rob makes, the ridiculous things I say, and the things that I mention. But who's going to win? The Hall of Fame quarterback with the roster that we're still worried about, or the quarterback that we're worried about with Hall of Famers all over the roster? It'll be an interesting game, and it starts our great game of the week Sunday.
It certainly does, Corey. Bringing it right back around. Starting at 1 p.m. Eastern on A7FL.TV and DAZN. Action starts at 1 p.m. with the countdown to throw off, hosted by me, Matt Ryan, and then me, Corey, and Rob will call all the action for you all afternoon long into the evening. And also join us every week here on the 3-on-1 podcast. And you can also listen on the A7FL podcast network to the other side of the ball. Scott McCorkle, A-Dub, Casey Cox and company will be breaking down the other 10, which will be 11 through 20. They'll be counting that down starting this week, I believe. So keep an ear out for that one. And we're done here. We're going to wrap up. Be able to join us this Sunday, but let's get some sponsor love out of the way. tinyurl.com/A7FL Skillshare. That's tinyurl.com/A7FL Skillshare. Sign up now for a free 30-day trial, and we end up with some money. So give us money. You get smarter. We get money. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. And also head on over to tinyurl.com/A7FL merch. That's tinyurl.com/A7FL merch. You can get the I Tried shirt. You can get the Huss Huss shirt. You can get the shirt with all 3 of our faces on it. Or if you're an elegant, respectable person, you can get the Thick Boy Season t-shirt right there. You can get it in a bunch of different colors. Don't get white on white. That's just, something you shouldn't do. But
Steve.
for Big Rob Fabian, for Corey Hammond, I'm Matt Ryan, reminding you as always, don't be an asshole.
I'll try.